Welcome back to Digital Ghosts, the podcast where we explore the most fascinating and bizarre mysteries of the internet age. Today, we're dialing the clock back to the turn of the millennium, a time when the internet was a very different place.
Right. This was the era of dial-up, of clunky forums, and anonymous chat rooms. Social media wasn't the giant it is today. It felt like a digital frontier where anything could happen, and anyone could be anyone.
Exactly. And it's in that environment, in November of 2000, that a user started posting on the Time Travel Institute forums. He made a claim that was, and still is, one of the most audacious things you could say online. He said his name was John Titor, and he was a time traveler from the year 2036.
And that's where our story begins. Not with a whisper, but with a bang. A time traveler just casually chatting on a public forum.
So, who was this person? According to his posts, John Titor was an American soldier from Tampa, Florida. In his timeline, the year 2036, he was part of a government time travel project. And he had a mission. And it's important to paint a picture of what that meant back then. This wasn't Reddit or Twitter. These were niche, text-based forums, places where communities were built on trust and shared interest, not algorithms. The barrier to entry was higher, which created a different kind of online society.
A mission that sent him back not to our time initially, but to 1975. His objective was to retrieve a very specific piece of old technology, an IBM 5001 portable computer. It created a different dynamic. You couldn't just go viral. You had to earn credibility over time. So when Titor started posting and did so consistently for months, he was treated less like a troll and more like a strange new member of the community. People engaged with him seriously.
Which sounds so oddly specific, right? Not a world-changing weapon or a secret document. An old computer. But he had a reason. He claimed the IBM 5100 had a unique, undocumented feature that allowed it to read and debug code from older IBM mainframe systems.
Yeah, apparently his future was facing a massive computer problem, a sort of Y2K-style bug but for Unix systems, set to hit in 2038. This 2038 problem was real, by the way. It's a known issue, so they needed this old machine to help fix their future infrastructure.
The level of detail is what made people listen. He wasn't just saying, "I'm from the future." He was weaving in real-world tech history and problems. So if his mission was in 1975, why stop in 2000?
He said it was for personal reasons. He wanted to visit his family, specifically his younger self, and collect some photographs and other items that were lost in a future civil war.
A future civil war. We'll definitely come back to that. But first, let's talk about the machine itself. How did he supposedly travel through time?
This is one of the best parts of the story. It wasn't some sleek, futuristic pod. He described it as a C-204 gravity distortion time displacement unit, a stationary mass that could manipulate gravity.
Okay, so a big, complex machine. And where did he keep it?
This is the cinematic part. He claimed the unit, weighing about 500 pounds, was installed in the back of a car, initially a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette, and later moved to a 1987 Chevy truck.
A time-traveling Corvette. It sounds like a movie plot. And he didn't just describe it, did he? He actually posted pictures.
He did. He posted scanned images of his user manual and even some crude diagrams and schematics of the device. He talked about using two micro-singularities spinning inside a magnetic field to warp gravity and create a pathway through time.
Right. It was just plausible enough, using concepts from theoretical physics like Kerr black holes, that it hooked people who were into that sort of thing. It wasn't magic. He framed it as applied science.
Exactly. The detail was his greatest tool. But the science and the mission are one thing. What really cemented the legend of John Titor were his predictions about our future.
This is the core of it all. The proof, or lack thereof. What did he say was going to happen?
Well, get ready because it's pretty grim. His main prediction was that a second American Civil War would begin in 2004 or 2005. He said it would start as civil unrest surrounding a presidential election and would escalate into a full-blown conflict by 2008.
Wow. And what was the outcome of this war in his timeline?
The United States as we know it would cease to exist. It would break into 5 separate sovereign regions. The new capital of the country he fought for would be Omaha, Nebraska.
That's a very specific and dramatic future. And obviously that didn't happen.
Not even close, but it gets worse. He predicted that this civil war would culminate in a brief but devastating World War III in 2015.
Oh, wonderful. Who were the combatants?
He said Russia would launch a nuclear strike against the major cities of the US, China, and Europe. He called it End Day. 3 billion people would die, and the world would be plunged into a sort of post-apocalyptic state with a heavy emphasis on community, farming, and survival.
Okay, so his predictions were catastrophic. Civil war, nuclear war. What else? Any smaller scale predictions?
A few. He warned about mad cow disease spreading and being a huge problem for years. He also predicted that CERN, the research center in Switzerland, would discover the scientific basis for time travel shortly after he left, which would be in 2001.
CERN did discover the Higgs boson, which was a monumental achievement, but not exactly time travel.
Right. So looking back, the vast majority of his specific, verifiable predictions were completely wrong. The Civil War didn't happen, the Olympics in 2004 weren't canceled, and there was no nuclear war in 2015.
So, how do his believers explain that? How does the legend survive when the proof so clearly fails?
Because Titor gave himself the perfect escape hatch. He was a proponent of the many worlds interpretation of quantum physics. He claims that his presence here in our timeline had already created a new divergent world line.
Ah, the multiverse defense. So our world is different from his because he visited it. His predictions were true for his timeline, but not necessarily for ours anymore.
Precisely. He claimed there was about a 1 to 2% divergence between his world line and any he traveled to, so anything he said could be written off as being part of that divergence. It's an unfalsifiable claim, which is the hallmark of a great conspiracy theory.
It's brilliant in a way. So he posts all this for a few months from November 2000, and then what happened to him?
He disappeared. His final post was on March 24th, 2001. He said he was leaving our time and returning to his own, and then silence. He was gone as suddenly as he had appeared.
Leaving behind this incredible story that immediately started to grow into a legend. But people didn't just let it go, did they? There have been investigations.
Oh, absolutely. The internet loves a good mystery. Over the years, countless online sleuths have tried to unmask John Titor. For a while, a company called the John Titor Foundation sprung up, represented by a Florida-based entertainment lawyer named Larry Haber.
An entertainment lawyer? That seems convenient.
Very. Haber claimed to represent the Titor family, but many believe he was much more involved. The most prominent theory, supported by an investigation by a private detective in 2009, points to 2 people, Larry Haber and his brother, Maury Haber, who is a computer scientist.
A computer scientist and an entertainment lawyer. That's the perfect combination of skills to create and manage a story like this. The technical knowledge and the legal framework to maybe eventually monetize it.
Mm-hmm. The linguistic patterns in Titor's posts were analyzed and found to be very similar to Maury's. While they've never explicitly admitted it, the Haber brothers are widely accepted as the most likely authors of the John Titor story.
So, if it was just a hoax, a creative writing exercise by two brothers, why are we still talking about it over 2 decades later? What gives the story such staying power?
I think it's a few things. First, it was a pioneer of internet folklore. It showed how a compelling narrative could spread and take on a life of its own in the digital age. It was a perfectly executed piece of speculative fiction presented as fact.
The timing was also perfect. It came after the Y2K scare and before the world-changing events of 9/11. There was this background anxiety about technology and the future, and Titor's story tapped right into that.
Totally. And honestly, a part of us wants to believe. The idea that someone from a dark future could come back and warn us, even if the warnings are vague, it's a powerful fantasy. It's a modern campfire story.
Whether he was a real time traveler or a fictional character created by two clever brothers, John Titor left a permanent mark on internet culture. He taught us about the power of a good story and the fine line between belief and skepticism in the digital world.
A true digital ghost. That's all the time we have for today. Join us next time as we explore another corner of our strange, wired world.